Good morning. This is Bill from Europa, Naples, and today I have this 1988 Mercedes-Benz 560SL Roadster. But that's not immediately what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is how there was a time in human history when, the people that worked for you, they could be beheaded, they could be kneecapped, they could be, put up on a post and set fire to. There were all kinds of ways that they could be disciplined until a bunch of do-gooders came along and made it so that you couldn't do these things anymore. In fact, they took it quite into the other direction with things like official breaks and OSHA regulations regarding safety and all sorts of things that just have made the world worse. And I am, sort of hearkening to a time when you could put some offender's head on a stake and, feel pretty good about yourself because you were sending a message to his work comrades that that sort of stuff wouldn't be tolerated. And frankly, that's the position that I find myself in today, is wishing for a time like that. But anyway, I won't go into specifics, but let me just throw in a little pitch there for the Genghis Khan style of workplace authority as truly the most efficient and prosperous ever brought to the human condition. Anyway, 1988 560SL Roadster. This is an R107 body, they call it. It was designed by a fellow named Friedrich Geiger. It's probably one of Mercedes-Benz's most successful cars. Certainly, maybe up to a few years ago when you said the name Mercedes-Benz, quite a few people would have pictured this car as the definitive example. It goes back many generations to the very famous 300SL Gullwing and Roadster models. SL meaning Sport Light or some such. There's some debate about that, but we're going to go with Sport Light, even though I don't really think any of them ever were. I mean, these are heavy cars, but I suppose when you're talking about big German cruisers, that this certainly is lighter than the S-Class. Anyway, you can see the design is quite lovely. The previous generation before this was called the Pagoda because of the way the hardtop roof sort of dipped in the middle. And you can see that the trunk line on this car has much the same feature. In fact, they could have called this a Pagoda, I think, based on that. These ends of the fenders are higher than the center of the trunk lid. You can see this one also is in a US model, so it doesn't have those short bumpers that everyone really likes. That said, they don't bother me that much. I know I'm going to get flack over that, but they really don't. I also kind of like the 4-round headlamps. I actually genuinely prefer those to the Euro lamps. I just think they have a nice style to them. I get the Euro bumper thing, but the light thing, take it or leave it. Also on the 560SL, you can see it at that lower panel there beneath the bumper. That was new to that car. The 380s, 450s, the earlier versions didn't have that, and frankly, it looked a little bit weird. To me, it just looks correct with that lower air dam, not enhanced in any way. This also got the Aero wheels. They came out in '86. Nice addition. They went to 15-inch over the 14-inch bunt cake wheels that came before it. They also got recessed door handles, and frankly, I might prefer the big chrome suckers on the 380SLs a little bit better. They weren't plastic in the middle. They were just all chrome. But of course, if the thing hit you going down the road, it'd probably take you out. So maybe that was a nice thing, recessing them. You can see, nobody made taillights like Mercedes in the 80s. They were just completely their own thing. This was designed in such a way so that if it got coated with mud or dust, it wouldn't get in there and you'd still get some of the taillight. So, especially if you're selling these cars to, guys in the Arabian Peninsula, they're going to get covered with sand and mud. And, that thing is a way to keep the taillights visible. So pretty clever. You can see everything in real good shape here. This car has under 100, but I would call it a driver. It's, very much a collectible car, certainly in collectible condition. But I think it's safer to call this thing driver condition. That's had some minor restoration work on it. Very little minor stuff just to make it look a bit better. You can see it's got some Michelins on there. They haven't made Michelins for this car in quite a few years in this size. So the fact that they're on there shows you that this thing really hasn't been driven all that much. Certainly not in recent years. We've got the soft top stowed. We'll pull that up in a little while. Let's have a look under the hood. So here's a quick story about these cars. Is the European version, the 500SL, the bigger V8, was never sold in the United States, much to the chagrin of Mercedes-Benz enthusiasts. You could only get the smaller V8, the 380, which just didn't have the same horsepower. So what happened is a lot of guys went over to Europe. They bought the 500SLs. Maybe you've heard the term gray market. And they had those things imported over here, and they, you know, Americanized them. They put on the bumpers, lights, whatever it took, and drove them around. And of course, that drove the United States Mercedes dealers absolutely insane, because they would rather be selling them cars than having people go to Europe and bringing them back. So after a cacophony of protest, Mercedes took the big 5.6 liter engine out of their S-Class, stuffed it in the R107 body, called it the 560SL, and shot it over here to the States from 86 through 89. And as a result, they sold quite a few of them. And in fact, to add insult to injury for the Europeans, the 560 was now not available in Europe, so they only had the 500. So the reverse started happening, and people started taking the 560s back. Anyway, you can see everything nice and proper and original under the hood. It's a great running engine, all been recently freshened up in terms of, you know, servicing, oil filters, changes, air filter, all that kind of stuff. Everything very nice and proper under there. It brings us to one of the collectible parts on this car, and that's the Vin stickers. You see one here stamped with the Vin. We've got one over on that fender, also stamped with the Vin, and one over on that fender, all stamped with the Vin. You'll also find it on the bottom of the bumper. Also, the VIN number is stamped here into the core support of the car. So now what that shows you is that the car has all original sheet metal up front, including the core support, that it's never been in an accident bad enough to necessitate a hood or fender replacement or anything like that. So it's definitely a good thing to see. Even if a car's had a little paint work, you definitely want it to have the original panels. Now the same thing continues into the doors. Over here you can see we've got a VIN stamp on the right door. Love the way the doors close in this car. It's kind of the last of the, you know, safe bank vault doored Mercedes. You got a VIN sticker over here. Nice stuff. You hear that? That sound. Incredible. You got one here, one on that quarter panel, and one on this quarter panel. So with all of those present, we now know that this car has had all original sheet metal all the way around, and that's exactly what you want. So here in the trunk, you can see it's finished in the same sort of light beige color the inside is. A nice shape. Doesn't look like they were beating it up too much. Maybe a set of golf clubs or two. And when you pop open this little container here, you'll find the battery location set in the back for weight. You got your jack there, a vacuum pump behind the jack. You see the straps are still intact and nice, holding the battery lid on. That's what you want to see. And things look nice and proper there. Underneath this carpet, let's fold it over for a minute and pull it up. There you can see the original spare tire, never been on the ground. You got a bag of tools, the original hang tag, all nice stuff what you want to see with a well-kept 560. This was a nice older couple who owned this car. You know, it was her dream car. She drove it for a few years, and it was quite sad when she traded it in. So anyway, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop here for a minute. I'm going to get the soft top up, have a look at that. Then we'll get it back down, have a look inside, and go for a spin. All right, here it is with the soft top up and fixed in place. You can see it's black. It's the German Stay Fast cloth. Absolutely the exact style that it came with. Very, very nice, very fresh, recent replacement on this car. It's a couple years old. You can see the back window, perfect, clear, very, very nice. All the stitching nice and intact. Very nice job they did installing it, all to original equipment standards. So absolutely lovely. Also nice fit and finish on the weather strip, and everything looking good all around. So let's get that back down and go for a spin. Okay, so the soft top is back down. Now, real quick, I know I go over this sometimes in Mercedes, but you know, some people look at these that don't see the CLKs. So you can see that big star in the grille, of course, the Mercedes star. That does mean something. That's just not a good-looking star. And what it does stand for is German Mercedes-Benz domination of land, sea, and air. So it has a prong pointing one to the land, one to the sea, and one to the air. Nice, aggressive, sort of industrialist corporate symbol. This is very important here as well. Not only that you see it has the original windshield, the Securit company with the star in it, that it still has the original aluminum wiper blades is very important. Very often guys pluck those things off, replace them with real cheap, plastic, auto parts replacements and just do away with them. And the correct thing to do is to put the inserts inside of those silver wiper arms. Keep them silver, keep them looking nice, and you're good to go. The kind of the chrome in this thing, it probably went 5 or 10 years past what it was intended. So it's really a modern car that has such a vintage look. I mean, it's got airbags and safety gear and fuel injection and anti-lock brakes, but it truly is a car that was designed in the 1960s and looks it. And that's one of the things that I just love about it. It's a very vintage car with a very modern drivetrain and, of course, modern safety. So, you can take your vintage car to Miami or to California, cross country. It just isn't a problem. Now we're starting to get sun out, which really stinks because it gives you these shadows, which I hate. But real quick, you can see one of the things done to this car, and you can see the way the color's changing as I move it around. It was leather was put in at a cost of about $3,000, about $2,800 or so. The leather in it was not horrible, but was definitely a little bit worn and beyond just putting in a panel or two. You could have done that. It just would have looked weird. So the people before trading it, maybe about 8 months ago, had a nice new set of matching leather put in. Great cost, perfect leather, lovely to feel, lovely to look at, and all what it should be. You can see the original door panel, nice and tight. Here's another thing on these cars that's interesting. You see the little perforations in the door panel. Those do have a purpose. When the air conditioning or the heat is going, it's blowing into this guy here, which is blowing it into the doors, and then it just sort of emanates from the door panels onto your shoulder, onto your body, keeping you cool or keeping you warm without even really knowing that it's happening. You also get these great 60s style chunky German adjustments. No power stuff in this car. It's all just incredible craftsmanship, and that's all pretty neat. Even the door latch, absolutely insane the way that thing works. Back here in the package shelf, you can see somebody's committed a terrible crime and put a set of speakers there, but makes it sound good. The phone makes everything look crappy, looks all washed out, but it's fine. Very good looking, not faded, matches the interior color and looks good. So, all right, let's hop in. All right, there's that great sound again. The keys will fire it up, standard way. That big V8 comes to life. Very, very nice. All right, there it is. So here you have a very classic, beautifully laid out instrument cluster. Over here on the left, you've got your R107. I think that's just Germans being cheeky. I mean, truly, I get refill. R is fine. E might even be dumb. R is better, although sometimes you want to refill on half a tank. But the whole, 1/2 and 1/1 thing, I mean, come on. It's just better to have, maybe 1/2 and F for full. You've got your Celsius your water temperature there. Over on the other side, you've got your pegged oil pressure. Down here, you got an economy gauge. Here you see just 94,000 miles on the clock. Nice orange stuff going on with the speedometer. That's the way it's supposed to look and not be all sun bleached and faded. Over here, you've got your tach. You see a 6,000 RPM red line. Dash looks good. No cracks up there. That's what you want to see. You got a hint of one here, but not bad at all. And all very proper there. This car also came with a Fahrenheit thermometer, first one to have right there in the middle. Maybe the 380 had it. Now this thing, man, this is after my heart completely. This reminds me exactly of the first cassette deck I had in my car in the 80s. and that's when this thing was put in this car. This is a genuine, fantastic Alpine pullout. I haven't actually tried it. Let's see what we got. God, does this bring back memories. All right, let's find a proper radio station here. That sounded horrible. I don't know what these people are listening to, but it's crap. All right, God, does this bring back, you know, Mercedes has the Alpine touch. And a little scratchy on the volume. Oh, you got Pat Benatar. Awesome. Anyway, man, does that bring back memories, that old Alpine. Very period correct. I like seeing it in there. You can see the wood is really nice. The climate control looks new. That must be something they replaced at some point. Sometimes they go wonky. AC is nice and cold in this car. The heat works great. You got a pull-out ashtray there. You got a 4-speed automatic. If you go all the way down and over like that, that's going to let you start in first gear. Otherwise, this car is going to start in second gear to make it a bit smoother. I don't know why I have it sitting here running. Shut it off. I should be going through all this without it. It's too noisy. Anyway, you've got your window switches. You got the beautiful lumber here. Again, this has all been redone. There's no way that's original. That's an expensive piece that got put in. You know, going back to the German engineering, you've got a right side power mirror controller over there. The left, it's manual because you don't need the left. It's right there in front of you. Typical, you know, German thinking. The lumber inside the dash, very, very nice. You got a set of books. You got, you know, very traditional glove box there. You got some map pockets, rear view mirror, you know, sun visors. This thing does have an airbag on the driver's side. Very, very nice stuff. So again, a vintage car that has some pretty significant safety, which is a good thing. So let's fire it back up and go for a drive. Now, sometimes I do get wind noise in these cars, so I'm not going to do that in such a way that screws up the video, the sound. It doesn't matter anyway. These things are not rocket ships. They've got about 230 horsepower. You know, they're plenty torquey, plenty peppy. You know, they are V8, so you hammer it and they respond. But they're not really meant to be, you know, driven insanely fast or anything. It's just a great little V8 Roadster. So I'm going to go nice and slow and let you see how it feels. The hood, all the stuff that, you know, the design on this car, it's just beautifully subtle. I love the increasing folds in the hood to the center hump there. You know, again, German engineering and design of this time, it wasn't like the British with their, you know, incredible, you know, sort of swoops and curves. Mercedes had all the same stuff, but they just did it in a much more subtle and German way, and that's part of what gives this car some charm. You can see it goes down the road nice, everything lovely. All of the, you know, little stalks and controls are working good. You know, cruise control works good. No warning lights on, and all the fantastic German hieroglyphics there. So it's just such a sweet car to drive. There's nothing else really like it. And there it is. So I'm going to go back to work, and I'm going to ponder that whole thing with Genghis Khan about, you know, putting heads on pikes, and, you know, is it something that I want to do, and should I do it, and, you know, is OSHA going to have a problem with it? They probably will. Nobody has a sense of humor over there. Anyway, 1988 Mercedes-Benz 560SL Roadster. Just turned 94,000 miles. Have the hard top back there, soft top, fantastic driver, beautiful collectible. This car will not disappoint. It's ready to go. If you have an interest, give us a call, 239-649-7300, on the web at mercedesexpert.com. And if you're a guy thinking about a 107, thinking you want to own one, man, take the jump. They're all going up in value. They're lovely cars to drive and maintain. They stay together, they're reliable, and they're just beautiful to look at. So don't hesitate. Go out and grab yourself one. You'll be glad you did. Thank you very much for having a look. We appreciate it. We'll see you with the next one. Take care.